book in the country, at least on Amazon. It'll obviously be a New York Times bestseller. Dana Perino, the book's called And the Good News Is, Lessons and Advice from the Bright Side. Please welcome Dana Perino. Good morning, Miss Perino.
I'm glad to be here.
How are you?
Miss Perino, that's very polite.
It is?
Yeah, thank you.
What should I call you?
You can call me Dana.
So, you're from Colorado, aren't you?
Yes, I was born in Wyoming and grew up junior high and high school in Colorado, but my family still ranches in Newcastle, Wyoming, which is in the Black Hills, sort of about 80 miles west of Mount Rushmore.
Do they raise cattle or?
Yes, sir, and quarter horses.
Well, they do.
Yes.
What do they do with the quarter, like roping horses or
no,
reining horses?
Yeah, reining horses for the most part. And in a way, the horses kind of ended up a little bit more of as a hobby for my grandfather, and the cattle was really more of the money-making operation. But they've brought some horses back, and my family just loves animals, and I learned a lot about protection of the innocent from when I lived up on the ranch, and I write about my childhood in the book, which was pretty fun, going back, and my great-grandparents emigrated from Italy and homesteaded up there and just had a little plot of land, and I write that they walked into one side of the American dream, and 100 years later I walked out on the other side as the White House press secretary.
So you grew up on a horse, right?
Yes, sir. My grandfather gave me a good compliment. He said that I was a great horsewoman. And, you know, if your grandfather says that to you, you know that's a pretty good compliment.
So you must know who Joe Beaver is.
I do, and I actually have been to the Rodeo Hall of Fame there in Pueblo. And one thing you may not know about me is that I started as a country music DJ on KCCY-FM, 96.9 Pueblo and Colorado Springs on overnights on Saturdays and Sundays.
Did you ever play any Dwight Yoakam?
Yes, I'm actually a little in awe this morning that Dwight Yoakam was the warm-up act here for me. He sounded great. But one thing, I was the DJ in 1995. Do you know what the #1 song was?
Well, wait, hang on a second. 1995.
1995.
Give me a hint.
No, excuse me. I'm sorry. 1992.
1992. No, I don't.
Achy Breaky Heart.
Oh.
And I had
Billy
to
Ray
play
Cyrus, yeah.
Billy Ray Cyrus. I had to play that song every hour on the hour, and I ended up having that song in my head for about 6 years.
So how did you wind up? Cattle ranch in Colorado, right?
Mm-hmm. Wyoming.
I'm trying to pay attention, but I have the attention span of a hummingbird. How'd you wind up in a White House as the press secretary to George Bush?
It's one of the reasons I write the book, because it's the question I get most often. A lot of people will ask me, hey, so where did you grow up in Texas? I said, well, I didn't grow up in Texas. Well, then where'd you grow up? I say, Wyoming. And they say, oh. And they automatically think that I must have grown up knowing the Cheneys and that that's how I ended up at the White House. But it really wasn't that way. My family was not politically connected. Oh. I went to journalism school, and I just took a lot of chances.
Where'd you go to journalism school?
University of Southern Colorado on a speech and debate team scholarship.
Wow. And
then the University of Illinois for a graduate degree. But I ended up working on Capitol Hill because the news business, to me at the time, I didn't even know what bias was.
How'd you get a job there?
Well, that's one of the things I also talk about is just connections, making friends over time, keeping in touch with them, and keeping your eyes and ears open, and being willing to take a different path. So I wanted to be in journalism. The job I was offered on Capitol Hill was answering phones for a congressman, and I thought that meant that I would never get to work in journalism.
Right.
But obviously that was wrong.
Well, I was just curious, so I guess you must explain in the book, and you're unwilling to tell me now, apparently, how you got from Wyoming to Capitol Hill. I mean,
well,
where was your first job?
I'm trying not to be too detailed and bore you to death, but okay, I'll tell you because it's actually a good story.
Okay.
At University of Southern Colorado, the public television station was on that campus. It's one of the reasons I wanted to go there, besides the fact that my dad said I had to because that's where I got a scholarship. Yeah. But I got to do a show called Capitol Journal. It was terrible, okay, but I was the reporter, anchor, producer, writer of everything of a show that explained to people in southern and western Colorado what the Colorado State Legislature was doing up in Denver. When I was up there, Congressman Scott McKinnon would always be willing to do an interview with me.
Sure.
So nice. And I look back now and I think he was actually really going out of his way to help a young person who really didn't know what she was doing. Well, then I went to graduate school. I'm working in news. I don't love it. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm a conservative. I don't really fit in here. But there was a job offer in the Colorado State Legislature for a Republican as a deputy press secretary. And I thought, well, I know how to write a press release, so maybe I could do that.
Sure.
I called that congressman's office, the chief of staff there that I used to deal with, and asked could I use Congressman Scott McInnes's name as a reference on my resume? And he said, well, if you're looking for a job, we need somebody to work for us. And I thought he meant in Pueblo, Colorado. And I said, oh, I told myself, I'm like, I can't go back there. I'm not going to do that.
Sure.
And he said, no, it's in Washington. And I'd been to Washington when I was 7 years old.
That's
and so one of the
story.
things I say also is that in the book is that parents should take their kids to Washington, D.C. twice during their childhood. I got to go when I was 7 years old. Believe it or not, I was at the White House when I was 7. My mom's friend from high school worked on the Air Force One manifest, so we got to go take a tour. This is during the Jimmy Carter administration, and guess who was working in the White House at the same time on that day? Bob Beckel.
Whoa. How's he doing, by the way?
Recovering from back surgery. We hope he gets better, a little better every day. Major back surgery.
Is he going to be back on the 5?
Well, I couldn't give you a date, but he's got, I have to tell you, he was in so much pain. He had this major back surgery, 8 hours. They had to go in from the front and the back. But he's doing a lot better.
Yeah, I like him.
Yeah. So he would have been at the White House at the same time. And I came home. I stood on a milk box.
That's when he was drinking, doing drugs and all that,
Back in the 70s?
Yeah, he and I are both recovering alcoholics and drug addicts. Yeah.
Yeah, so in the 70s. I didn't know him then, obviously. We always laugh because he thinks, you were 7 when you came to the White House. And then 22 years later, up back there as the deputy press secretary.
We're talking with Dana Perino. Her book is #1 at Amazon this morning. It obviously will be a New York Times bestseller. She's one of the stars of The View.
The 5.
The 5, I mean.
But I was on The View yesterday.
It was like
and I starred like crazy.
How is The View? Now, who's on there now?
It was fun. My friend Nicole Wallace, who I worked with in the White House. Whoopi Goldberg was there, Hannah Storm, and Rosie Perez.
I love Hannah Storm.
She was great.
And the good news is the book is called, you can buy it this morning, of course. How's Jasper, your dog?
He's America's dog. You know why he's called America's dog?
No.
It's not because I was arrogant thinking my dog is the best dog in America. It's because one night on Red Eye, Gutfeld had me on as a guest, and there was a story about a woman in Hollywood who was very mad at the paparazzi for taking pictures of her little dog all the time. And Gutfeld, who thinks I'm a monster, said, Dana, you've been known to fly into a rage about people taking pictures of your dog. And I said, oh, quite the contrary. I want to share my dog with everybody. He can be America's dog. So that's how he got the name, and it stuck. He's definitely my best asset.
He's not America's dog, but that's fine. I'm sure he's a fine dog. But
he's a fine dog.
Lucinda's dog. Lucinda's Wyatt's dog is America's dog. Right.